The Himalayas, often called the roof of the world, stretch across thousands of kilometers, forming a breathtaking yet formidable natural barrier between India and China. These ancient mountains have witnessed centuries of history, myth, and migration, but today, they are at the center of a modern geopolitical storm. This remote and rugged frontier has become a flashpoint between two of the world's most populous nations, China and India, each determined to assert its dominance and protect its interests. Here, two nuclear-armed giants stand face to face in a tense and uneasy standoff. Tens of thousands of soldiers are deployed, sometimes just meters apart, their presence a constant reminder of how quickly tensions could escalate. The landscape itself is a silent adversary. Freezing temperatures, blinding snowstorms, and treacherous mountain passes make survival a daily challenge. In these conditions, nature can be as deadly as any weapon. For India, the Himalayas serve as a natural fortress, a shield protecting its northern borders, and a symbol of its sovereignty and resilience. For China, control over this region is crucial, not only to secure Tibet and Xinjiang but also to safeguard vital supply lines and infrastructure projects that are central to the ambitious Belt and Road Initiative. The border here is more than just a line on a map. It's a living symbol of national pride, strategic resolve, and the deep-rooted mistrust that lingers between these two Asian giants. In recent years, China has rapidly expanded its presence, building roads, airfields, and even entire villages in disputed areas. These developments are not just about infrastructure, they are about changing the facts on the ground and asserting control. India has responded in kind, ramping up its own military deployments, fortifying outposts, and investing in new infrastructure. The result is a heavily militarized zone, bristling with tension and uncertainty. With soldiers on high alert and the world's media watching, the risk of a miscalculation or accidental clash is higher than ever. Even a small incident could spiral out of control with devastating consequences. This is not just a regional dispute over remote mountains, it's a test of two competing models of governance, two visions for Asia's future, and the balance of power in the 21st century. The United States and its allies increasingly view India as a crucial partner in counterbalancing China's growing influence, forging new alliances and deepening military cooperation across the region. Any conflict here would not only disrupt vital trade routes and supply chains, but could destabilize the entire Asian continent, drawing in other powers and threatening global stability. To truly understand the stakes, one must grasp the complexity of this standoff. It is a microcosm of the shifting dynamics that define today's geopolitics, where local disputes can have far-reaching global consequences. The future of the global order may well be shaped in these icy remote mountains, where ambition, fear, and history collide. The stakes could not be higher. In the shadow of the Himalayas, the world holds its breath. Today's tensions between India and China can be traced back to a border that was never formally agreed upon, a line drawn on maps but never truly accepted by either side. This ambiguity has fueled decades of suspicion and rivalry, shaping the relationship between these two Asian giants. This contested boundary is known as the Line of Actual Control, or LAC. Stretching across the rugged Himalayas, it remains undefined in many places, leaving room for frequent misunderstandings and confrontations. In 1962, a sudden and devastating attack by China caught India off guard. The brief but intense war left India humiliated and deeply mistrustful of its neighbor, a wound that has never fully healed, and whose legacy continues to cast a long shadow over the region. For decades after the war, peace was maintained through a series of fragile agreements. Both sides agreed to patrol the border unarmed, relying on diplomacy and restraint to prevent escalation, even as tensions simmered beneath the surface. Yet, the fundamental border dispute never truly disappeared. Over the years, both India and China steadily built roads, outposts, and military infrastructure, inching ever closer to each other and raising the stakes with every new construction. In June 2020, the fragile peace shattered in the remote Galwan Valley. Soldiers from both sides clashed in brutal hand-to-hand combat, the first deadly encounter in 45 years. The violence shocked the world and marked a turning point in the border dispute. The Galwan clash broke long-standing protocols and erased whatever trust remained. Suddenly the standoff escalated into a full-blown crisis, with both nations blaming each other and refusing to back down. In response, both sides rushed tanks, artillery, and fighter jets into the high-altitude region. The Himalayas, once a symbol of natural beauty, became a stage for military might, and strategic posturing. The Galwan incident revealed a more assertive and confident China, determined to defend its interests. For India, it was a wake-up call, forcing leaders to rethink their approach to China and reassess their security priorities. The border, once a remote and quiet frontier, became an active front line, haunted by the ghosts of 1962 and the memories of past conflicts. Soldiers now stand watch in harsh conditions, ready for whatever may come. The events of 2020 have locked both nations into a dangerous stalemate, with heavily fortified positions and constant vigilance on both sides. The risk of miscalculation has never been higher. Today, the Himalayan frontier is a powder keg, one spark away from igniting a larger conflict that could have consequences far beyond the mountains. The world can no longer afford to ignore this flashpoint. The eyes of the globe are now fixed on the Himalayas, watching and waiting to see what happens next. China's military buildup is now visible even from space. An intricate network of roads, bridges, and tunnels snakes through the once remote Himalayas, reaching all the way to the line of actual control. Over the past decade, these projects have transformed the landscape, making what was once inaccessible terrain now easily traversable by heavy vehicles and troops. This rapidly expanding infrastructure allows the People's Liberation Army to move soldiers, armored vehicles, and supplies with unprecedented speed, effectively erasing the natural terrain advantage that India once enjoyed. Where steep cliffs and narrow passes once slowed movement, convoys now roll through with ease, ready to respond to any situation. Across the Tibetan Plateau, new military bases, airfields, and missile sites have sprung up, each one a clear signal of China's intent to maintain a permanent, well-supplied presence in these high-altitude regions. These installations are not temporary, they are built to last with hardened shelters and advanced logistics. China's so-called well-off villages in disputed border areas are more than just homes for civilians. They double as outposts for militia and paramilitary forces, strengthening China's territorial claims and blurring the line between civilian and military presence. These settlements are equipped with modern amenities, making them attractive for long-term habitation. For India, these villages present a complex challenge. Any response risks not only military escalation but also political fallout and humanitarian concerns, as civilians are now interwoven with security forces along the frontier. This buildup is not a short-term maneuver, it's a deliberate, long-term strategy designed to keep India off balance, forcing it to stretch its resources across a vast and difficult border. The scale and speed of construction suggest careful planning and significant investment. The message from Beijing is unmistakable. Resistance is futile. China's Himalayan fortress is here to stay, projecting power and confidence across the region. With this new infrastructure, the PLA can now escalate a crisis at any point along the 400-kilometer border, choosing the time and place of confrontation. This flexibility gives China a significant strategic edge. India now faces a formidable and deeply entrenched adversary, one that is prepared for both military standoffs and psychological pressure. The strategic landscape of the Himalayas has been fundamentally altered, perhaps permanently, by this wave of militarization and settlement. The stakes for both nations have never been higher, as every move along this contested frontier now carries the risk of escalation and lasting consequences for the region. China's motives go beyond the border. Securing Tibet and Xinjiang is crucial for Beijing, and the Himalayas provide a buffer against unrest and outside influence. The standoff ties down India's resources, limiting its rise as a regional rival and member of the US-aligned Quad. China's tactics mirror its South China Sea strategy, building, occupying, and daring others to challenge its claims. The message to neighbors: China will use its power to redraw borders. Domestically, a tough stance fuels nationalism and bolsters the Communist Party's legitimacy. President Xi's Great Rejuvenation narrative depends on projecting strength. The border standoff is about power, prestige, and the foundation of the modern Chinese state. It's a high-stakes game with regional and global consequences. India has responded with its own massive buildup. 50,000 extra troops now guard the border year-round, matching China's presence. India is racing to build roads, tunnels, and airfields, closing the infrastructure gap. Advanced jets, drones, and surveillance systems now monitor the frontier. India is also developing vibrant villages to anchor its claims and support the military. The shift is clear, from defense to proactive deterrence. The message to Beijing: India will not yield an inch. But the cost is immense, straining budgets and locking India into permanent confrontation. The elephant has woken up, but the price of vigilance is steep. The standoff defines India's security policy for the foreseeable future. This is no ordinary border dispute. Both sides are nuclear powers. Any clash risks spiraling out of control, with catastrophic consequences. The LAC is poorly marked, leading to frequent tense face-offs. Since Galwan, old protocols have broken down. Troops are more heavily armed and aggressive. A misunderstanding or accident could trigger a firefight, making de-escalation difficult. The harsh environment adds risk. Accidents can be mistaken for hostile acts. Communication is unreliable. Hotlines often go unused in crises. Both sides see their buildup as defensive, but each views the other as a threat. This security dilemma fuels a cycle of militarization and mistrust. The steps meant to ensure peace could lead to disaster. The region is trapped in a dangerous dance of deterrence. The nuclear shadow looms over every move. Despite the buildup, diplomacy continues. Over 20 rounds of talks have led to limited pullbacks and buffer zones at key flashpoints. These steps lower immediate tensions but don't solve the core dispute. Troops and heavy weapons remain close, ready to redeploy at a moment's notice. India demands a return to the pre-2020 status quo. China wants to normalize its new gains. The diplomatic impasse leaves peace fragile and temporary. Disengagement agreements are not permanent. They rest on thin trust. The border remains undemarcated and the risk of crisis is ever present. Without a political breakthrough, the cycle of talks and standoffs will continue. The path to lasting peace is narrow and uncertain. The world holds its breath. The standoff has global implications. The US sees India as a counterweight to China and has deepened security ties, sharing intelligence, conducting joint exercises, and selling advanced weapons. China views this alignment with suspicion, testing the limits of US support for India. Smaller Asian nations watch closely, gauging how their own disputes with China might unfold. A Chinese victory could embolden further aggression. Indian resistance could inspire others. Any escalation would disrupt global supply chains and destabilize the world economy. The conflict could paralyze international institutions like the UN. The Himalayan border is a critical fault line in the global order. The world has a stake in preventing catastrophe. The stakes are global, not just regional. The Himalayas are now a militarized front line between two nuclear giants. China's buildup has forced India into a costly, dangerous response. Old agreements are gone, replaced by deep mistrust and constant risk. Diplomatic talks have managed symptoms, not solved the core conflict. The undemarcated border and opposing goals keep the region on edge. A precarious balance of deterrence prevails. Neither side can back down easily. Real peace would require political will, transparency, and renewed dialogue. The international community must encourage restraint and negotiation. The future of this frontier rests with leaders in Beijing and New Delhi. The stakes are nothing less than peace or war in the 21st century.